staff, directors. I want to welcome everyone to the regular council meeting for Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. The town of Comox respectfully acknowledges that we are standing on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation people, traditional keepers of this land. Before we begin, I just want to really briefly acknowledge that there are a lot of hard and tragic things going on in the world right now. And I know that weighs on people differently and can be heavy times. And I personally am very grateful to be able to live and work in the town of Comox and be on Vancouver Island. So I just want to share my gratitude for all of us that are able to come to these meetings and have these discussions. And it gives some perspective to how lucky we are to be here and have these kind of business to business community discussions. So just wanted to take a moment to know that everyone is handling those things in different ways, depending on their connections and their community. So to acknowledge that very briefly. I'd like to get a adoption of the agenda for this evening and a seconder. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We have two delegations this evening. The first delegation is going to be Robert McLennan to discuss the town of Comox becoming a certified bat-friendly community. And I apologize. I know there's two of you. Sorry, we just became a bat-friendly community. Bird-friendly community. I'll just ask you to come and stand or sit and make sure the mic goes red. We have your presentation for bird-friendly certification up here, and just make sure the mic is red so those online can hear you. And you're welcome to come up now. And I apologize, it's Robert and James. I was going to say Jeremy. Robert and Jeremy, you have 10 minutes to do your presentation, and the mic will go red when you click it there.
Okay. Your worship, councillors, thank you for taking the time for seeing us tonight. We're very excited about this. As was previously mentioned, my name is Robert McLennan. I am the coordinator for the Town of Comox Bird Friendly Certification Process. We have a team of individuals who have joined us. I've got James McKenzie and Diana Colnett with me as well. The other people unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. We are here to ask the town of Comox pass a resolution to support our efforts to become a bird-friendly certified town.
Do I press one of the two arrows to proceed? I want to cancel both. Perfect. Okay, thank you. So in 2019, there were two studies, and this is just two of many studies that get published seemingly every year that say that birds are in decline. Commonly, the threats include things like habitat loss, which are often the biggest problem, but then also more anthropomorphic and anthropogenic reasons like cat predation, collision with windows, glass windows, artificial lighting left on at night, attracting migratory birds, which would otherwise pass right over. Pesticide use, which has, of course, insect declines, which has negative effects on specific species of birds and specific groups of birds. So, we're not exactly too concerned about the Canada goose population right now, but it's birds like swallows and nighthawks, aerial insectivores that are really struggling. So I am the education coordinator for the Mars Wildlife Rescue, and the center reports year after year that the most consistent reasons for admission are, in order, injuries from domestic cat attacks, collisions with windows, and then finally contact with vehicles. So 3 people problems. I'm sorry, of course. So the bird-friendly community status is built on 3 main pillars. The first is addressing and mitigating threats of those we spoke to just before. So injuries from cat attacks in particular and window strikes are the 2 major threats we see that have real impactful injuries to birds. Of course, restoring native habitats, so planting native plants, removing invasive plants, restoring previously lost habitat, including forests, grasslands, and shorelines. And then finally, outreach and education, which includes what actions individuals can do and how we can teach the next generation and the current generation about what can be done to save the state of birds, not only in Comox, but as an example for public communities. First.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so how will the town of Comox benefit from being bird-friendly certified? Bird-friendly certification is a source of community pride. tells the world that your community is leading on the efforts to reverse bird population declines. Participation in the Nature Canada program provides rigorous standards that measures the impact and progress of our efforts while offering advice and support. It also offers access to a network of other bird-friendly cities that are addressing similar issues. And bird-friendly status provides an opportunity to educate citizens about bird population declines and how they can take specific, measurable, affordable, and effective actions. How will the residents of Comox benefit from living in? Well, thank you. There we go. How will residents of Comox benefit from living in a bird-friendly community? There's health benefits. Research shows that access and meaningful reconnection to nature improves physical, mental, and emotional health in humans. It increases the awareness amongst our youth, how youth can make a difference. School pollinator gardens, beginner birding classes, making homes more bird-friendly, and also education versus regulation. Encourage pet owners to take action to prevent unsupervised roaming. Pet owners and bird-friendly residents can live in harmony. And I've got up there a link to a group of people that offer a lot of advice as to how cat people and bird people can live in the same neighborhood.
So communities as a whole, not just individuals, can benefit from having a bird-friendly certification. Small towns to cities. There is a network. So on the island, the town or city of Saanich has become a bird-friendly certified community. And as well in Lions Bay, they've also have that small town designation. Now those two communities are just on the entry level, which is all we're really proposing as well today. So just getting a start. Now, I'm not sure if any of you saw this bird. I unfortunately did not, but in 2013, there was a little tiny gray and white bird that was found in kind of the Dyke Road called a citron wagtail. And people traveled from not only Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, but also from Washington State, from Oregon, from all over British Columbia and the general community to see this specific bird. Now, there unfortunately was not a study done to find the economic impact of this bird, but there have been other studies done in other communities, small towns, large cities for similarly rare birds. For context, this bird should be in Asia, not in Vancouver Island. And the input economically was, for a couple of months in the hundreds of thousands. So there is potentially an economic input to having birders come. Even just last year, there was a rare swan found. And it was just telling me an anecdote how her crazy friend, as she called her, drove all the way from Richmond to come and see the bird and then couldn't find it on the first date. So stayed the night in a hotel and had dinner. And then the next day found the bird and went home very happy. So bird people will travel great lengths to see fun birds. And the more habitat there is, the more rare birds there are. So what resources are needed from the town of Comox? So if we start things like an annual World Migratory Bird Day, providing resources in terms of location, staffing, support, and advertising. Of course, if it goes through, providing a link to the certification on the town website, establishing a bird viewing platform or multiple bird viewing platforms potentially underway already at Mac Lang and other locations. It could also include building more nest boxes like the Purple Martin nest boxes that are down here in Comox Bay. Also establishing more demonstration gardens for pollinators and local wildlife, and potentially even conducting a survey to find a community bird that best represents the town of Comox and making that formalized. And then finally as well, municipal departments can lead by example by treating their windows for anti-bird collision strikes. So there are methods to treat windows, big and small, DIY and large custom-made things. So leading by example would help as well save bird lives, turning off lights, which save migratory birds, as I mentioned earlier, from going down and wasting time hitting windows instead of migrating straight over. And then in turn, continuing to plant pollinator gardens and surveying trees if needed before work for nesting, because some birds like hummingbirds nest as early as January. Oh, good, I do.
Okay, I guess I can read off. Sorry. So, just recently, the town of Comox, was certified bat, and, we thought we'd take a look at the, parallels between our two initiatives. And, our bird friendly is on the left, as you can see, nearly 30% of the population decline, due to habitat loss, cat predation, collisions with windows, pesticide use, artificial lighting left on at night in urban areas. And, bat, on the bat side, we have bat populations are globally in decline due to pesticide loss, loss of habitat, climate change, and the introduction of invasive species. I'll let you mention that. Yeah. Restoring natural habitat, plant on the bird friendly side again, planting native plants, removing invasives, restoring habitat loss, and our forests and grasslands and shorelines. You can also help bat populations by planting native species and removing invasives, providing roosting habitat, bat houses, and leaving habitat and avoiding the use of pesticides.
So the best part is that we're almost already all the way there. So to become an entry-level bird-friendly city, you need a possible 18 points out of 36. And the city of Comox currently stands at 15 out of those 18 points. So that includes things like being close to an IBA, an important bird area, which the entire Bay of Comox is. It includes things like having pesticide bylaws against cosmetic pesticides. It includes other things that Comox already qualifies for, luckily. But there are a couple of points that we would need to achieve to get to that next level. So a couple of possibilities that we included. There are more than just those ones. But removing plastic pollution or even taking actions to start a program to do so would qualify the city of Comox with an additional point. Reducing light pollution at night, so especially during specific migratory windows, turning off city lights for short periods of time overnight could make that difference to getting that extra point, and also reducing the number of birds hitting windows. And speaking of windows, also, leading by example, as we mentioned, so reducing window collisions by treating your windows specifically. Now, there's also a couple of other ones we have here. So having a no roaming cat bylaw, having wildlife collision mitigation, which could be as simple as having more signs and having more outreach campaigns in that regard. And also having bird-related nature-themed programming for marginalized people or new arrivals to Canada, youth, or even families. So there are a number of ways to achieve those points. We only need 3. And as you can see there, once we have the ball rolling, I'm sure it would be a lot easier to all kind of notice that, hey, maybe we're actually 95% of the way to get at this next level. And we hope by that kind of holiday period, 2024, we could get to the intermediate, and then potentially, I believe we would be the first small municipality, at least in British Columbia, that would achieve the top level if we got to that point. So it's certainly not a large number of municipalities that are in this situation. So the town of Comox has an opportunity to really be a leader in this field and stand for small towns, and then hopefully larger cities will follow, and the reduction of bird populations will reverse. And then I can find more rare birds and bring people to Comox. I believe that's all we have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And just before you go, I'll just ask if there's any questions around the table from council for Robert or James. Councillor Hart.
Thanks to you both for the presentation. So to get those 3 points, like if we named a community bird and developed something around the viewing platform at the Mac Lane Nature Park, would that be enough to get those 3 points? Or your slide seemed to indicate it needed to be in a different category? Like, do we have already too many points in one category, need to put more in that other category? Just kind of curious what we could do that would get us to that entry level. Thanks.
Okay. You are right in that we do have different categories, and we've actually got too many points in some categories. And so I picked the threat remediation category, which we're a little bit short on, to get that 18 points. And I think, as the expression goes, that might be the lowest hanging fruit to get us there. And we want to stay away from any large changes at this point. We just want to get the program established, and then we can go on from there.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from council? Councillor Blacklock.
Are there any other communities of our size that are currently certified as bird friendly under this nature program?
It's a good question. Thank you for that, Councillor Blacklock. There's one actually in Canada, and they are Lions Bay on the West Coast. They actually established a lot of criteria for the small community criteria. And so I've been in touch with them, and they wish us luck because we will be the second, but we can also take that criteria and expand it as well. We've got tremendous resources in the town of Comox, and a lot of retired professionals, a lot of very strong nature people. So, yes, to answer your question directly, yeah, we would be the second one in Canada for that. Yeah.
We prefer birds. Thank you very much. We don't make decisions on the night of, but if any councillors have any questions for follow-up or want to take on some advocacy and learning more, then they would be in touch. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for taking time.
Okay, moving on. Our second delegation of the night is from Aaron Vornbrock on the building at 215 post 215 Port Augusta RZ 23-3 from Urban Design Group. So I'll ask Aaron to come up. Either you can sit at the table or stand at the mic. And the mic is on. So you have 10 minutes.
It's going to be short. Aaron Vornbrock with Urban Design Group. We're the architects working with the mall on the proposed development. Just wanted to say that we were here and available to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you. And just for council, there will also be a staff presentation on this, but for questions to the proponent, this would typically be where we ask any questions directly to them. So if you have any questions that you would want Aaron or David, who's standing, to answer, now would likely be the best time. But did you want to say a couple words also? Well, here?
Sure.
No, you were just, you were on, so now turn the mic on.
There we go. Is it on?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Mayor Minions, councillors, senior staff, thank you. As a lot of the councillors here, with the exception of two, when we bought them all about 8 years ago, I thought I would just give a little brief history for everyone. About 8 years ago, we came to Comox, and with the economic development, John Watson at the time and a couple of councillors, they enticed us to do a major investment here in Comox. When we bought the center, it was 70% vacant. It was really shameful, quite honest, for downtown Comox to have a center in the center of a great town, yet 70% vacant, run down. We looked at it, we analyzed it, we spent, I guess, roughly 10 or 12 million dollars renovating it, and did a thorough analysis of the tenants that were required. And I think when you look at it today, we fulfilled the first part of our program, and that was to give a fully tenanted mall. We never lost any tenants through COVID at all. We worked with our tenants. We actually have some tenants who would like more space, and we don't have the space at the moment. But the next part of this, to make it viable for all of downtown Comox, is we need density. Density creates jobs, it's people. It will also, in the long run, it will also help transition some of the businesses that are currently services on Comox Ave to retail. Because we've spoken to a number of other retailers, unfortunately, the density isn't there. Even recently with the Rad Brewing Company, the group from Church Street Tap House purchasing it, one of their comments is, well, gee, we can't open Tuesday or Wednesdays. Monday and Tuesdays, because there just isn't any traffic downtown. So, certainly we would like to be the catalyst to initiate this and start a program of creating density in downtown Comox. As Aaron mentioned, we're here. Everyone has the plans. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
I'll just jump in with a question to start, and then council will also jump in a moment. A lot of the community does perceive that square, even though it's mall owned, is part of the town of Comox, and kind of that gathering space for the community. And so in the staff recommendation that we go to later, they've said, there's interest in having that permanent space. I'm just wanting to hear from yourself or urban design group, where that could kind of be a sticking point, and obviously that would change the density, having to have that, or if it's, I'm curious how it works then if that was.
Okay, well, I think one thing that has to be remembered here is we're not dealing with a greenfield site here where there's flexibility. We're dealing with an existing site where, we already have structures built, the shopping center, but we also have lease obligations in no build areas. It was brought a couple of times during the public event we had to show the public, why don't you build it on the east side? We have no build restriction in the Loblaws lease. Because they require that portion for the parking. What we did do, and that was in the plan, is we only have so much land that we can build the condos on. And what we've done is we've maximized that site. However, we feel that what we've offered as an alternative, the events area, which would basically span from Cooperators down to the entrance coming in off Comox Ave. So when various events are to be held, we can put boulders in, it's cut off from traffic, and the events can be held. We're looking at approximately over $1 million just to redo that with pavers and planters. And I think it would enhance, because I really feel that we have about 6 events, a year. That are held. So, that would be our alternate plan. We do not have the flexibility under the general partnership and the limited partnership to give any land that's currently owned by the general partner and the Comox Mall Limited Partnership away. So, that definitely we have our alternative, and that's our main point on that.
Okay, thanks for that kind of explanation into that. Other councillor questions for either Aaron or David? Councillor Swift.
Thank you, David. I know in a lot of the letters, there's been concern, given that it's right on the corner, of the impact of the amount, particularly going up Port Augusta Street. And I noticed there's a green wall, but I'm wondering if there could be an adjustment to the landscaping that would provide some taller trees in there just to break up the
Sure.
sightline.
Sure, I think we can look at taller trees. The one that, we could put taller trees. The only thing we don't want to do is have trees that grow so large that they impede the sight lines from the balconies of those residential units. Because even currently, if you're coming down Comox Ave going eastbound at the intersection of Port Augusta, Comox Ave, if you look right now, one of those large trees blocks our pylon sign. You can hardly see the first pylon sign. So that would be one thing that we would want to avoid. But yes, certainly we can work with our architect in planning and come up with suitable plantings along Port Augusta.
Other questions from council? Councillor Graham.
All right, thank you. So I think I heard you say that there's 2 different companies that are here. There's the developer building the building, and there's the mall owners, and they're separate. So in our plan, I'm just looking for here, I think it's on page 12 of our report. There's a patch in there that's designated in blue. And it seems to be, because we're talking about amenities tonight, and that's really all that's on our agenda for this. I think what I'm hearing you say is that you couldn't give that up even if you wanted to, because you don't own it. That's correct. Right. But then just to go one step further.
Just to go one step further, and this has to deal with transit. Okay, so I'll just bring up the item of transit, where transit has now come back to the town, and planning has advised us that transit would like to have 2 transit exchanges on Port Augusta. So one alternative, and I've spoken to Aaron, and we will work closely with both planning and transit, is the possibility of closing that entrance to the parkade now shown on the plans on Port Augusta and moving it around into one of the near the blue area to create an entrance into the parkade. Now we'll have to work with Aaron in transit and planning on it, because we do have some elevation changes there. Level 1's at 19.5 feet. Outside of that, over in sort of the blue area, it's at 21. So there will be a little bit of grading to do, but that is one alternative that we'll look at, which thus would satisfy transit, we hope. And then we could still accommodate our P1 parking for the residents.
I just get clarification. So is it that the plaza, which is a temporary space, what's being kind of offered in lieu of is mall property, and the development property is very specific to the corner? Like, what differentiates the plaza location?
Well, the plaza would be still part of the mall, because when there is not an event, we would use it as parking. Because we would need that in order to meet our 4 per thousand parking requirements under the Loblaws lease. So when we do have an event, let's see fast, the boards would go in and the area would be closed off for that event. And then after the event, it would be opened up for parking, and which is also important for those retailers, Wolfie Curly Nails, Thrifty Girl, who are currently located on the lower level of the center.
I'll come back to that question probably. Councillor Hazlitt and then Councillor Sweat for first time speakers.
My questions were mainly to do with on your talks with transit, as well as the landscape design, basically the trees and the shrubs. Like you had said, there's that large tree coming up Port Augusta. And I just was interested to know what other options you had. You answered those questions, Councillor Swift. But it would be nice just to see the building broken up a little bit as we work to it. So thank you for answering those.
Yeah, we can definitely work with our landscape architect in planning on those.
Councillor Swift and then Councillor Buckle after, please.
Thank you. I think, David, we were hoping to get the idea of a plaza. So if we have this area that you're suggesting that would be a temporary plaza, could you just describe a little bit how you would see seating and landscaping and things in that area? Would they be vastly different than they are now, or?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, but I'll let Aaron, I'll just let Aaron speak to that for a moment.
We actually have an example of what we envision the Festive Plaza to operate as. It's part of the package on page no, it was actually part of our submission. So it'd be on drawing. I don't know what page. Right. There's some example photographs down below of market, vendors. I'm not sure with mall how the details haven't fully been worked out, but, you know, street vendors, you know, hot chocolate, donuts, stuff like that. You know, there's going to be room for people to set up stuff like that there. Is what we think might happen there. And then as far as the plaza goes, there is a permanent piece that is part of this application. It's the full length of the new development along Comox. And it's not very deep, but it supplies some seating, some paving, some landscaping. That would be a permanent dedicated plaza space.
So just to confirm with that plaza space you're talking about is up 4 meters along Comox South?
Does that answer your question, Councillor Swift? We can always come back to you after.
Well,
Or we can follow up.
sort of, I mean, I see it, but it still looks like, this festival piece would still be more of a strip because you need to maintain parking, right?
No, actually, Councilor Swift, the way that would work is during an event, yes. There'd be boulders that would go in,
Right.
walk off, they get the traffic. Then when there were no events, I mean, obviously you still have the landscaping and the stones and so forth. But yeah, then it would open up the parking.
Right, so I guess what I'm thinking of is that whole idea of a square doesn't happen except during the event.
Right.
Yeah.
Except there will still be benches. And so
Yeah.
forth there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's more like sitting along the road and then that's right.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I have it.
Yep. Yeah.
Councillor Blacklock?
You know, when we read through the public comments that we gathered during year 2 consultations with the community, one of the common refrains is that there's concern with the height of the building. Now, I notice, you know, at 6 stories, this would be one of the tallest buildings in Comox. And how would the very top plate of this building, according to your drawings here, is just over 40 meters high? How does that compare to the Berwick building further down the block? Do we know if it's actually higher or of similar height? We're just, you know, I can see here that you've recessed the top floor back so that from the street, it won't be such a monolithic straight line in the air. But is there any way we can compare your building to the highest building along that grade at Berwick current? Would you guys know that?
The only confirmation we received was from CFP Comox. We've gone through a referral with them, and they determined that our building's lower than the building in behind the Loveloss, the Balmoral building.
1700 Balmoral.
Right. So that was the reference we got for sure.
Now, the other that we have done, Councillor Blacklock, is our original plans that were submitted for the top floor. We had bolted roofs, ceilings for the penthouses. On the recommendation of planning, they had asked us to reduce that and go with the flat line as you see in your rendering now, in order to bring down the height of the building.
And just a follow-up question, under the current package or under the current design of the building, what would be your obligated contribution to our affordable housing fund if this building were approved?
Okay, I believe, and please confirm, but I believe it's $8,000 per unit.
It's in the package listed as around 440-ish thousand.
Yeah,
Try to
so
find
that roughly, I think, is about 8,000 per unit. Yeah, right.
40 something.
Yeah. Yes, so.
Other questions from council while we have David and Aaron standing before it comes up later on in the agenda? Councillor Hazlitt.
And I'm just going to go back to the special events area there. You had mentioned making some changes to that part of the mall parking lot there. Does that involve you working with kind of different owners? I understand that it's not all one owner, but you guys share some of the space. How will that work? Will we end up having to work with kind of two separate companies on that, or are you kind of thinking the work?
No, the way it works is the general partner, which I'm 50% of. You know, we have the say with the limited partnership. So it would be basically when it comes to dealing with events and so forth, you basically would deal with the state.
Just to go back to the event space, if that was a sticking point of council, and I'm not saying it is or isn't, I don't speak for all of council, is that not something that the development group could choose to provide as an amenity as the development group?
Well, our alternative is because, you know, we can't still give the land away. So, you know, we came up with the alternative of saying, here's what we can do with the new event area, upgrading it. But as far as us giving that area to the town of Comox, to be quite frank, it's a deal breaker.
Okay, that's kind of what I think.
Yeah.
I was trying to
Oh,
clarify.
okay. Yeah, no, that, you know, we can't. And just as the same, we can't build on the east side because we have those lease obligations, you know, and that's what I was saying is you've really got to look at this site specific because it's different from greenfield site. You know, if this was a greenfield site, we'd be having a different, we may not even have the conversation about this. It would be able to do. So, you know, we're looking at trying to, you know, maximize out the site. And, you know, I think it's really the catalyst to get moving here, you know, and perhaps maybe it will stimulate the owners of the old Lawrence site. You know, that's, you never know, it just might.
Thanks for clarifying that. So can't and deal breaker. Good to hear. Over to Dale Wall for comment and then Councillor Grant, please.
Thanks. I just want to dig into that a little bit more. You explain, and I understand on the east side why you can't establish the building. You know, there's not just with the requirements for Loblaws, but there's also water table concerns and those things. But when you say you can't provide the plaza, I have less of an understanding of why that is. When I take a look at where the plaza is located, we're talking about just a couple parking spots. You mentioned it around the development group, but with the festival area, that is also a concession being given by the development group that seems to be okay. So,
Well, yes, it's a concession because we can still use it as parking when there are not events.
So, and that's where I want to understand where and why they can't come from. Because again, when I'm looking at the plaza, we're talking about a laneway providing access between the two areas.
That's right. The laneway also is a fire lane.
So that,
And it's a fire lane and the main sewer runs down that area.
which is a sewer pipe underneath.
Yeah, a sewer pipe underneath. But I guess, Jordan, we will not give the town of Comox that area. Okay.
And that's fine, but I think it's worth us getting to an understanding of why the can't is just don't want to.
No, it's not that we don't want to, but the other is we do not want to have any restrictions on that. In the future, if we decide to sell the mall, we do not want to have any caveats running down sort of a portion of the mall
So,
as well.
so getting an understanding the sewer, I don't see that as concern, you know, SRWs,
No,
those all
the
exist.
sewer, but
And parking, where I think when we take a look, there's about 4 parking spots. But this is where the can't on the east side, I totally understand. Can't in this area, I don't quite understand as well. So the reasons are parking obligations, And
Well, we have
fire,
parking, we have parking obligations, and then also when you look at where that parking currently sits, that wouldn't be affected. That services cooperators and a couple of the other tenants on the sort of run in, get your insurance and run out again. So when we looked at this, we thought the best obligation, the best alternative was to come up with this plan of doing a much larger area at our expense that could be utilized. You know, the small area you have now, and I know we can all sit here and debate it, but all the times I've come up, and just recently last week, the homeless were sleeping on the benches early in the morning, and then one of the religious group takes over to do their marketing. So, and I know that, you know, when we look at the BIA and the number of programs that they have, you know, it is very limited for use on that small corner area. So I personally think that being able to give a larger area and utilize it at opportune marketing times for promotions is a great alternative.
Thank you. And I just maybe mention, Council, that really right now the difference between the developer's proposal and the staff's recommendation centers around acquisition of that plaza. So having a good understanding from the developer's perspective at this point in the meeting, I think is important for you as you go to make your decision later on in this meeting.
Thanks for that clarification from both of you, and Councillor Grant and then Councillor Kerr.
Well, I just had two quick questions, one for Jordan and one for you guys, but what kind of implication would this have to the shop downtown? I drove down there today. We have 7 retailers on our main street, not including the mall. If you go to Courtney and look at 5th Street, they've probably got 100 or more to have a fairly vibrant, like we're a mile away from having a vibrant street. So how much impact would this have? And then my other question for Jordan is how much, I don't understand the accelerator fund yet, but I know that this will kick in if this building were to be approved. So I'm just wondering what the impact of that is for us.
So this project would have a positive impact on the downtown economic vitality. You know, the more density that you put into your downtown, the more shopping and more money is going to be spent in your downtown. So I don't have the economic figures or projections in front of me, but you can run those numbers to see how much additional spending that will stimulate, along with the inclusion of additional commercial units in the downtown. So that, you know, more commercial stimulates more commercial spending. So that would be a positive net to the economic activity in the downtown. The amount of funds that the town would receive if we are approved for the Housing Accelerator Fund, if you consider each unit here built above the base number, so you have to remember that grant, we have to build a base number of units, and then every unit that's built after that will bring in funding, and the amount per unit would be 16 or 20,000. So each unit being constructed in this project would bring in $16,000 or $20,000 for the community. I just want to make sure there's a couple caveats in that. 1, we have to get approved. 2, we have to be above our base. And 3, there is a limit on what the federal government is going to give us. So, you know, if this project goes and more projects go and we end up being above that number, this might not actually end up bringing any additional funds because we've gone over and above. So it's not something I can answer for sure, but if you put those 2 ideas, it's above base, but below the cap, 20,000 per unit.
So we'd be looking at, if all of that worked out, we'd be looking at close to $900,000 in accelerator fund money, should it all work the way we hope it does.
I'd help. I'll trust your math.
All right. I used my calculator, so I didn't do it in my head.
Councillor Kerr.
It's great. I think it's great we have this chance to have this discussion. And Mr. Kuhn, thank you for coming to chat with us about this. I think, you know, I think we're all really excited about this project and, you know, bringing more people downtown and the density, increasing the vibrancy in the community and the downtown and helping our local businesses. I think this is a really great thing for that reason. You mentioned the housing and the Affordable Housing Fund, which, you know, is near and dear to my heart. I think that's great. You know, $440,000 towards that will really help us provide more affordable units in town. I think this, you know, this piece around the culture and the community and the meeting space is an important hot button issue. And we did see a lot of comments from the letters and at the open house about that. I guess I had two questions, and they're probably difficult questions. The first is around the event space. So just taking a step back, the loss of Town Circle will be felt as a loss to many of our residents. I think that's understood, and I think the letters, you know, really show that. Having a space that can be converted from a parking lot to an event space is great. Nothing's stopping us from doing that now. You can put pylons and bollards up and have the current parking lot being turned into a meeting space. So really, your proposal doesn't really give it anything new. Yes, new landscaping, some benches, etc. It'll still be converting a parking lot on Halloween to a event space. I think what is being proposed here by staff is that this isn't significant enough of a community contribution to allay the concerns of residents about the 6 stories, the wall, the massing, and the loss of Town Circle. So the question is, if it's a no-go to provide and I think the intent is from the staff report is to provide a continual area, a meeting space, a gathering space, like Town Circle can be described by some now, that is on the mall lot where people can gather and events can be held, in addition to maybe closing the parking lot for really special events. That would be a significant enough contribution for us to go to our community and say, yes, it's going to be the first 6-story building in Comox. It's going to be a giant wall and a different look downtown. What can we give the community in return for them, you know, having their buy-in as citizens to this very, very big change in their community? So if you say that's a no-go, have you had any other thoughts? What would be a significant contribution or amenity to the town that might allay the concerns of the residents? That's question one, and if there's time, I have another question after.
Sounds good. Let's do one part at a time. That'd be great. You're welcome.
Well, I guess number one is, are you looking for a cash contribution? I mean, you know, you're asking me to negotiate with myself. I mean, Councillor Kerr, we've said what we can do and what we can't do. So it's really up to council to come back and say what would be an alternative cash amenity to offset it.
So cash is one option. I wasn't even thinking cash, but
But I mean, okay, I mean, that's number one. Number two is when I look how tight the site is, I really don't know what else we could give.
okay. So then I guess that leads into question two. So again, I don't know how many people you counted at the open house, probably over 100. There might be 100 or more letters. And the big concerns, as I outlined, were the 6 stories. That was obviously number one. The loss of Town Circle, the wall, and sight lines, and the feeling of being like boxed in on that corner because of the massing right at that corner. So from the original proposal at the open house to the current proposal that sits before planning, what changes were made based on the feedback of residents?
Aaron?
We're in with the same package that was submitted and held at public meeting.
Okay, I will just say that is disappointing.
Okay.
Yeah. So you had all that feedback, 2 community consultations, 1 in person and 1 with letters, and no changes were made to the proposal.
Right.
Okay.
We will be working with the planning department on the development permit piece of this project moving forward. Colors, materials, all that stuff is still to be resolved. So those types of issues are still solvable.
But the community concerns that kept coming up in those letters haven't been addressed.
Yes, I think what the challenge here was the amenities issue, not the details of railings and stuff like that.
So I really want to see this project happen. like from the bottom of my heart, I do. Not trying to be an objection. I'm just representing the citizens of Comox that have come out and said they're not comfortable with the current plan. And to hear that no changes have been made is hard for me to hear as an elected official.
Councillor Grant, do you have your hand up? And then we'll go over to.
I think that we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves and a bit confused here. We're here to talk about amenities and whether we feel that there's enough amenity or not. How the massing of the building and all that goes will come at first and second reading, and we're not there. Our staff report is strictly talking about amenities. So those changes can still, or other changes can be made as we move forward. But I think we should stick to what the amenities are. If it's a cash contribution, you know, I've kind of thought about this a little bit too and thought, well, if you can't get that, what could you get? And nothing really comes to my mind as to what could work in and around that neighborhood that we could do. So, you know, as far as amenities are concerned, I think that we get a good chance of accelerator fund. We get to start revitalizing our town. We get a event center, event area that we can do. And, you know, you're also in a marketplace right now that is not conducive to going out to developers and taking all you can get and walking away, because you've got high interest rates, you've got a declining or stabilizing real estate market. So you're not in the same place you were 2 or 3 years ago to be able to do these kinds of things. And I guess to me, I have to look at this and go, is this good for our downtown? That's something that's a really high priority for our council, has been ever since I got here. And so when something like this comes, I think you have to look at it and say, is this really something that could help transform our town and get things really kick-started in the direction that we want to go? And I believe that this probably does. So, but, you know, I think that we're just simply talking about amenities here, and we should probably stick to that.
On this side of the table, Councillor Blacklock, do you have a question? Okay, Councillor Hazlitt, please.
Thank you. Do you know what the current, or I don't have it, and if I do, I can't find it in here. What's the current square footage of the current community square? Does anyone, staff, or do you guys have that at all? I'm just interested to know what the difference in square footage would be between.
Over to CAO Wall.
Yeah, it's difficult to envision because depending on what you count as part of that community square or not, but somewhere between 150 square meters down to about 80, depending on where you measure it from.
The current square is about 150 meters squared versus 80 of the 4 meter, is the 4 meter between Comox Ave.
No, sorry, the current town square is about 150 square meters, but it depends whether you're measuring from the outside of it coming in or you're just on the inside of the usable area. That kind of gets down to a smaller around, it's around 90. So between 90 and 150, this is the 4 meter wide strip proposed along the frontage. Maybe I'll look back to see if Director Commends knows the square meters of that 4 meter strip.
We pulled the SRW today, so the existing one is 172. So the existing square is 172. No. But we can easily get that.
Councillor Blacklock, you mentioned 30. Is that in the report? 130. Thank you.
And then the other question is, and I've been trying to imagine overlaid maps and everything, but I just can't quite find a map or a photo that looks great. But if you're looking at the current square at Port Augusta and Comox Ave, if that were to be the usable space that, and to me the usable space where the light pole is, the Christmas tree, as well as the arbor and that, I'm interested to know what that square footage would look like, and if if you move that east, it looks like in the design here that there's a space, there's kind of a walkway that's kind of going up towards the mall, or that goes up towards the mall. And it looks like there's a couple of benches and things like that right in there, and it looks really nice. But I'm just wondering if there's space in there potentially to get a somewhat of a community square. Does that seems to be, as Councillor Kerr mentioned, a huge sticking point for a lot of people in the community. The usable space doesn't seem, as we have it now, that there's a ton. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly correct. So we've got this area here that is quite a special event area, this blue area. Right, correct. Well, directly south of the blue area, there's space there. And it doesn't look like there's any parking. It doesn't look like there's a couple of extras all up. I'm just wondering if that would be an agreeable space to put something where we can keep somewhat of a community square for the town, but at the same time, not give up.
David, I'll just ask you to go back to the mic. We do have one counselor online and we're live, so if we can get as much from the mic as possible.
Yeah, sorry. We'll definitely explore it.
That'd be great.
I could just add in,
Sure.
I believe that was one of the options presented to the town initially, was rejected.
Thank you. It does seem that the sizing of the building, which may come hand in hand with amenities or come later on, depending on when we decide to kind of tackle that discussion, and the plaza are the biggest two for council and for the community. So we're kind of digging into this one a little bit tonight. It's great. So David and Aaron may not we may not have the opportunity to ask questions depending on the process being followed. So any other questions while they are in front of us tonight, Councillor Blacklock?
Obviously you guys have done a great deal of work to bring the project to this point. When you're analyzing the pro forma numbers for this building, are you considering it as a rental building or as a strata units for sale?
It would be strata units for sale. And from dealing with our realtors on it, the consensus is that most likely 80% of these units will be sold to current residents in Comox, many of them who are looking to move downtown and want to downsize, empty nesters, which thus opens up opportunity then on their residents to be purchased. The other is, the caveat, and I believe I've mentioned this to the mayor, is that the retail units fronting on the Comox Ave will be retail. They will not be professional offices of any nature.
Councillor Grant?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember how we got a town circle where it is, and that was grant money from the province way back when the Olympics were on, and they granted communities money to build those squares so that it would be a gathering spot. Now, I think that we probably, as the town, made a mistake in putting it where we did, because no one in those days envisioned that building would go on that corner. So it seemed like a great place at the time. Turns out we probably shouldn't have done it there, because here we are some 15 or 20 years later, and we're discussing what to do with it. So I think we have to take a little bit of the blame in that we didn't foresee where that could go. But, and I don't know what the agreement with the mall was or how they dealt with that, but it's something that I don't think we would do again today if that was the case.
Okay, looking around the table, there are no further questions for David or Aaron at this time. We'll move on to the discussion around amenities later on in the meeting. So you're welcome to stay for that. Thank you for answering our questions so far. So moving along, we will go to adoption of the regular council meeting minutes for Wednesday, October 4th to be adopted. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We have the special council meeting minutes for October 11th, 2023 to be adopted. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We have our strategic planning committee meeting minutes from Wednesday, October 11th, 2023 to be received. If I can get a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Consent agenda, we have 4 items there, A through D. I'll get a motion to pass all of those items. And if any individual counselor wants to bring out an item, we can do that after we move receipt of all 4. So a motion, please. And seconder. Perfect. All those in favor of moving the consent agenda? That passes unanimously. And any items that people would like to pull out, A through D? Counselor Kerr,
If I could do the second,
of course.
thank you.
Which item?
Oh, sorry, D. Yeah, sorry.
Someone blindly gave you. So
Uh,
that's the letter for changing garbage and trash shoppers.
And this might be a really quick question for staff. It looks like there was actually a pad there for a garbage can. Was it like knocked off and it's being replaced, or is that being thought of as part of the redesign for that bus site? Thanks.
I'll pass that back to Director Ashfield.
I believe there is close proximity to existing garbage cans in that area, so that's why that one's removed, just to limit, just due to resources and costs and going around collecting them. So that was for in the downtown Hong Kong use. There's a garbage cans that are close within our vicinity.
So just for staff, again, through the chair, just wondering if we've seen like as an unintended consequences, like some of the pictures in that letter showing quite a bit of debris and garbage around that bus stop. Wondering if town staff are recognizing that and having to do actually more cleanup and more time cleaning up that area than it would be to just have another garbage can there.
We'll send that to our Parks Department and that's.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other items from the consent agenda for discussion? Perfect. Just a quick reminder, our Comox Downtown Business BIA Association is having their AGM on November 7th, which is coming up in just a couple weeks. So anyone is welcome to attend that. We have no items under unfinished business, no special reports. For bylaw adoption, we have the 2023 financial plan amendment wildfire deployments. And there is a option to have a motion for Comox financial plan bylaw number 2019.01 2023 to be adopted. Seconder, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Then we have our 2023 permissive tax exemption bylaw establishing our 2024 exemptions, that the Comox permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2026-2023 be adopted. All those in favor? Perfect. Thank you. Moving on to new business on page 53, we have a grant application for BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant Program that council formally authorizes staff to proceed with an application for BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant Program for the Beaufort Avenue upgrade project between Church Street and Norden Street. As said, and seconder, all those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. We got here quickly. Moving on to page 55, we have rezoning application RZ 23-3 development permit application for 215 Port Augusta Street. And there is the first one there that is an amenity for the proposed 6-story building in relation to a controlled community plan section 2.1.3.3H. The form of development should be a maximum of 4 stories in height. Higher height may be considered if satisfactory amenities are provided. The applicant be advised that a more appropriate amenity to offset potential land use impacts of the proposed development would be a public plaza in accordance with the October 18th staff report on this property. So before we begin, I'll just start with a round of questions, if any, after our discussion earlier based on the delegation. If there's any questions to staff, just before we actually start kind of talking about the amenities, any specific questions to DAO Wall or Director Clement? I apologize, I forgot. Okay. There's going to be a short presentation from staff on their staff report, so I will welcome Director Commends to the podium. It's going to be Elliot. Welcome, Elliot. Just make sure the red mic is on, please.
Elliot provides the correct plaza. is 75 square feet versus 133, the 4-meter strip of land on the front.
Is that about like 800 square feet? Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah. 7, 8. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. So the presentation tonight will be a project overview, so briefly going through the subject property as well as the proposed development. And then we'll briefly go through some transit implications, including background. And finally, we'll discuss the amenities proposed for the rezoning, which include a discussion on the festival and events area proposed by the application, as well as the potential town plaza proposed in the staff report. So first of all, the subject property is 215 Port Augusta Street, it's shown outlined in red there. And in orange is the area of the property where the development is proposed. And as you can see there, we've got the Comox as well. So this property is zoned C4.1 core commercial, which is the predominant zone in our downtown. It permits commercial on the ground floor as well as residential above, up to a max height of 10 meters. So typically on a flat site, that would be around 3 stories. However, on a site that has a significant change in grade, you could actually get up to 4 stories. So that's shown. You get 3 stories where the grade is high, with the opportunity for a 4th where the grade is low. Okay, so yeah, now we'll zoom into the orange area here where the development is proposed, and just wanted to highlight the existing statutory right-of-way that the town has for a portion of the existing town plaza there. The size of the SRW is 75 meters squared. And then when you include the extra area, it could go up to 140, 150 meters squared. So the depth of that from Comox Avenue is around 8 meters, and the proposed building would take up about half. So it's going to have to be removed to permit the development. The building, the proposed development is a 6-story mixed-use building with 52 residential condo units, as well as 3 commercial units on the ground floor, which you can see there from Comox Avenue. The building also contains 2 levels of parking. The first level is accessed from Port Augusta here, and I'll try and highlight it. Yeah, so you can't really see it, but this is the underground level. So on that elevation, it's below grade along Port Augusta. The next level of parking is above that, and it's accessed from, sorry, the wrong way, and it's accessed from within the site here. And that level is in line with the sort of the red windows there we see along that elevation on Port Augusta. And yeah, you can see there's 2 accesses. The reason for 2 accesses is that there's no connection between the 2 parking levels proposed within the building. So just wanted to highlight that. Oh yeah, and as you can see on Port Augusta, that white rectangle is a bus parked there. That's because in that location, there's a 2-bay BC Transit exchange, which currently exists. So we'll zoom into that right now. And we're rotating the map 90 degrees to the right. Sorry, I know it's a bit confusing. Comox Avenue is on the left there, and Port Augusta is going up to the right. And then the north area you can see in the top right corner. So north is now right, and we have the Comox Mall on the bottom there. So in this area, the blue strip is the existing 2-bay BC Transit exchange, and in orange is an existing statutory right-of-way for a transit shelter. In red is the future expansion of 2 bays that BC Transit sees in this location. So during the pre-application stages for this development, we were discussing with the applicant the possibility of relocating the existing exchange to the north of that driveway entrance, because as you can see, the proposed building would interfere with the blue area, as there's the parking entrance, as well as the building would be right on top of the SRW. So initially we thought this had potential, given that we could just move the two red exchanges further up Port Augusta and then relocate the existing into that area. This was also discussed at a high level with BC Transit. We thought it was doable. So the application was submitted showing this proposal, which included relocating the statutory right-of-way to a road dedication, shown in yellow, further up Port Augusta. This proposal was referred to BC Transit, who responded with concerns, which we've seen, mainly regarding the interference with the planned expansion of 2 bays shown in red, and the ability for pedestrians to access that area from other stops along Comox Avenue, which all of this works in conjunction with, among other things. So the recommendation in the report is to request a traffic study to address some of these concerns. Okay, now we'll talk on the amenities. In terms of standard amenities, you see a list there. So affordable housing contribution of $400,000 in accordance with council policy. Residential units will have sound attenuation and alternate ventilation. The building itself will be constructed to step 3 of the BC Energy Step Code. 50 of the parking stalls will have a conduit for future EV, electric vehicle car charging. And finally, 6 units of adaptable housing are proposed. And this list is in accordance with the standard amenity contribution we would see for a typical rezoning of similar size in town. So the OCP downtown limits height to 4 stories, with the exception of this property, which can go above 4 stories, provided that satisfactory amenities are provided. Staff's interpretation of this section as related to the applicant was that amenities above the standard list here would be required. As such, the proposal does offer some additional amenities which are shown here. So first of all, the orange strip there is a 4-meter wide road dedication, approximately 130 meters squared. This area would be upgraded with pavers and seating, and it would be owned by the town. In addition, the application proposes use of the area in red there for unspecified festivals and events. The application, as we heard, proposes to upgrade this area with pavers, seating, as well as regrading. However, this area would remain as a parking lot when not in use for special events. So we see vehicles parking there and through traffic. In addition, this area would be owned by the property owner, and the town would have to apply to hold an event here. And there's no mention of legal mechanisms to secure this asset. So overall, this proposal does provide some sidewalk seating. However, there's no space for permanent town-owned space for public gathering, which could serve as a community focal point, given that the SRW is being removed. So the staff report proposes an alternative public plaza option, which is shown here. So it proposes to again take the 4-meter wide strip, but have it in conjunction with the blue area, which would also be road dedication, to be used as a public plaza. The key point being that both of these areas would be owned by the town. So the blue area was identified because it's oriented to the south, so it would get sun exposure in the morning, especially during the summer month. And as the sun progresses into the afternoon, it would actually be shaded by the proposed building. So it would be ideal in terms of sun angles. Also, the depth allows for separation from the street, and the proposed 6-story building would also shelter the area from traffic noise, create a quiet, comfortable area to the north up there. The size was identified because it's large enough to serve as a community focal point where events, small to medium-sized events, could actually be held. as well as gatherings of small alternating groups. And finally, it's actually currently mostly flat, so it would be accessible to all ages, abilities. This image is a bit misleading. It looks like the space is quite large. So we'll just zoom out to the site again, and the gray is the proposed building, and the blue is the potential plaza area. And then again, I just thought we would zoom in, and then you can really see it's only taking up about 7 parking spaces, and it's really not that large. It is large enough to accommodate medium-sized events, but not too large that it would appear empty when the event is a peak. And you can really see too how separated it would be from Comox Gallery. In terms of the design intent for this space, we'd be looking for a nice open-air downtown plaza concept with ample seating, like you can see on the left there, to bring people into the space and create a vibrant atmosphere. There's also an opportunity in the space to have canopy trees, which could provide shade and introduce an element of nature. Again, just creating that nice, comfortable atmosphere. And then we also wanted to address what the space could actually be used for. So the Parks Department had some great thoughts on informal events for this space, particularly regarding pop-up seasonal programming. So different areas of the plaza can be used for more active events, such as a class, like an art class is shown in the first image there. And you could also use it for more passive events, shown in the next couple of images, such as a foosball table or a tennis table, and that's that idea. In addition, there's an opportunity to expand the plaza into the road dedication, which can create more areas to accommodate some of this seasonal programming. And the benefit of this is that it ensures there's always something going on in the space to really draw people in and create that community focal point. And then when it comes to more formal events, yes, the space is not large enough to avoid closing Comox Avenue for the largest town events. However, we do see it playing an important role in those kinds of events. For example, it can be used for the Christmas tree light up, as shown there. We could also provide a spillover space for when Comox Avenue is closed for an event, where people could actually go and sit down and enjoy a meal when there's a large event going on. For more medium-sized events, it would be ideal for community groups to use it for things like an art exhibition, as well as, given its location right downtown, we also see opportunities here for businesses, existing businesses, to use this space for things like a bike repair demonstration or things like a wine tasting. So I think I'll stop right there. Overall, there's lots that we could do in that space. So, that's all I have.
In that group plaza, that would not be any parking. It would be a dedicated plaza, just to understand.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elliot. Questions from council, Councilor Grant?
Yeah, just after hearing the developer speak and say that that's probably not an option, is there anything else I can't think of anything else that we could put in, possibly cash, I don't know, but is there any other options other than that we could defer to?
This was the only option that we examined.
CEO Wall wants to comment on that.
Yeah, so ultimately, the form of what the amenities will take, we can examine. So you've got the proposal here from the developer who's setting forth one package of amenities, which you may find acceptable or not. The staff recommendation is put forth another set of amenities, which you've heard the developer's opinion on earlier. Ultimately, council can choose to move forward with either of those proposals and see how that progresses, or you can just simply make the determination today that the overall amenity package is satisfactory or unsatisfactory. You don't need to specify what that amenity package looks like in this meeting. You don't have to get to that level of specificity, if that makes sense. So as Elliot mentioned, as Mr. Turnbull mentioned, the OCP calls for additional amenities above and beyond what the OCP designates. Now, we are in I think a different world right now than we were when the OCP is written. And the question can be asked whether or not the provision of commercial and residential space in the downtown is an amenity in and of itself. And that is a question that staff can't answer. That is a question that council needs to consider and come to conclusion and give direction to staff on, through this meeting.
And so I just want to be clear, if we pass this as it is, it doesn't necessarily mean that that square would be something that would happen, because I've been pretty clear that they can't do that. Secondly, I guess I agree with you somewhat in that, when I look at our OCP and the way it's written, we're in a completely different world now than we were back when it was written. And to be stifling, putting buildings in because of amenity packages when we have an absolute crisis on our hands with housing just doesn't seem quite right to me. So I would look at this and say that I would agree with you that the commercial space is probably an amenity in itself, as is the fact that it's going to help to really get our downtown businesses going, and we need a lot of help in that. So I think that there's a couple of things that we're not thinking about on that. But I'm still not clear as to, if that square is out, what else would we put in?
I think that's what the discussion is about tonight. So around the table.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking here is that I don't think that there's anybody sitting at this table, probably anyone in this room, that would actually know what that would be. And so I think that this may need to go back to get more discussion and come up with a different idea for an amenities piece, unless we're happy with what they've got. I don't see us knowing what that should be. I just don't know anyone would know that. If staff doesn't know, then
I'll go back to CA Wall. I think there's an opportunity tonight to have at least as many questions answered as possible, and at least get possible indications, because we may not be at those amenity contributions. So getting where each of us is at individually on the concept of the town plaza or other is helpful input. This is our first chance to really have the input on this building before it goes possibly to readings. CAO Wall, did you want to comment? And then Councillor Haslett, please.
Yes, thanks. So ultimately, council does not need to get to a level of specificity. The reality in amenity packages, there's an unlimited permutations of what is possible. And if council doesn't have the thought of what those possibilities are and is able to provide that direction, that is totally okay. What we would do is simply provide direction to staff saying that the amenity package as put forward by the developer is insufficient at this time. You're directing staff to go and have further discussions with the developer, and at that point, staff will discuss with the developer what we can do to bring back another package to council for you to examine. So the question being put forward to you today is not to develop an amenity package to send out, although if you know what that is, you're welcome to. You can simply answer the question whether or not the proposed amenity packages, either of them, are satisfactory, and if they're not satisfactory to you, you can just give direction to go back and have something else brought. So just to be very clear, council can simply make the decision that the proposed amenity package are satisfactory and you want to move forward, or you want to provide direction for us to go and have more conversation with the developer.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Haslett, and then we'll be to Councillor Mayor online, and please.
Please go to first.
Online, if you can hear us, Councillor Mayor, you're welcome to go.
Thank you. I'm going to start with a sound check. Can you hear me okay? Great.
Yes, we can hear you well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry if this question was asked. I apologize for being late, but I did hear the developers describe where they thought this housing kind of fit into our housing needs. And I'm just wondering if staff have already commented or could comment on their assessment of where this housing fits in terms of our housing needs assessment is my first question. My second question is, and maybe we don't want to go too far down this road, but I just really appreciated seeing the suggestions of what we could do with a town square that was maybe situated a little bit differently. And I understand, I've heard clearly from the developer that particular area isn't an option. And so I guess I'm wondering if staff have explored if this might be well trodden ground, what could be some other options, and could there be a dollar value put on kind of offsetting finding another location like that? That would be another question I have. Thanks.
Pass over to Sarah Wall. It sounds like it's how it fits in with the housing needs assessment as far as market condos. And then the second part was how would that work on relocating of a plaza cash or any other options that have been considered off-site? Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start with the housing needs assessment. So we're in the process of going through an update on our housing needs assessment that I think will bring our needs more in line with the world we see today. Our current housing needs assessment is a little bit old, and I think what the past one indicates is the creation of these type of units, but also a number more in the single family homes realm. Again, with the level of density that we need now, I think once we go through the updated housing needs assessment, we'll find that this project is actually more in line with what our needs are today rather than what our needs identified in the past. So I think this project meets, partially fills that need, along with providing the mixed commercial space and mixed use buildings, what we saw in the development application review being called for. So I think this development meets what we would see in the housing needs assessment, what we saw in the development application report, and it checks those boxes very nicely. The second question on whether or not we've explored offsite through, if we were able to get a cash contribution, whether that could be used to fund an offsite acquisition of a similar use. It's not something that we've explored right now, but there certainly is that possibility. And we could have those discussions and start to build that fund to acquire something in the downtown. Where we can likely get direction from that is we have our downtown action plan, which is being developed right now. It's in its infancy, but the project has started, and we can start to look at and see if there's a call for public space or a public plaza in that we could start to use as the basis for collecting those funds to be able to establish it. But yes, we could do exactly that.
Thank you for that. And then I am just wondering, I know other communities have done community amenity contributions that are related to things like greening roofs. So that could look a lot of different ways. That could be solar on roofs. It could be rooftop gardens that are available for growing food for people who don't have any access to that kind of space. And also public art is another kind of common community amenity contribution in other communities. I'm just wondering if those things are on kind of our current list, if those have been discussed and discarded, or if those could be considered as part of a package.
So, sorry, Your Worship, because council is going through a rezoning process, ultimately, within reason, council can request what it wishes to see in the amenities in order to pass the project. If, solar inclusion or green roof is something that you see as being required, or you'd like to be required, that's direction that you can give to staff to include and pass on to the developer. So I guess it really depends on what council is able to or desires to move forward. And through your debate today, I said before that you do not have to specify what those amenity packages are, but if there are amenities that you wish to see included or amenities that you would say must be included, you can provide that direction tonight as well, so we can go back and complete the negotiations more fully. If council knows part of at least what it wants, and you provide that direction, it'll make the process more simple rather than, you know, sending us back, negotiating something and then coming back just to get direction that was missing what you required.
Thank you for that. So we'll be looking for some kind of motion or direction shortly. I just wanted to quickly speak on it. I think it sounds like around the table, no one is, you know, against condo buildings going in that location because it's not a green site. You don't have to talk about tree removal. It's right downtown on a bus route. Talking to the local businesses and coffee shops and, you know, different retailers, they want that downtown vitality. Just looking in our downtown Comox area and even all of Comox, we've had one condo building built in, I think, 6.5 years at Balmoral there, and a second, but mostly rental. We're talking about a place where people can downsize from their home, which may be able to be open for a family or a couple. You know, this is the route where people can downsize and open up housing to a different generation of folks. It's challenging when we're talking about how important a plaza could be and looking at, you know, we're asking for 3 to 4 meters and it's currently 8 meters, that a project could be deal broken on 3 to 4 meters. So that's kind of where I'm stuck, because it sounds like what we think would maybe be the major sticking point, which could be stories for Comox, which would take us some political will to encourage, to be able to approve, get stuck on like 10 feet or 12 feet. So that's kind of currently the challenge that I'm looking at, is the one vote here. But we all go to meetings where we talk about needing to get housing, needing to play our role in every avenue of the spectrum, even for market condos. But it is challenging when we've also heard how important that perceived community space is, and when we see pictures of what it could look like. That's where I'm getting stuck on, is the can't do a permanent plaza when it seems like it's a relatively doable thing to figure out a solution for. So I'm in a position of looking to go back to the table on what a plaza could look like, or an amenity that makes up for that plaza, and being able to replace it somewhere else. But I think it's important before we start looking at getting into the 5 or 6 story full approval. Councillor Kerr?
I have a suggestion for a motion.
Yeah, that was my next.
So just for discussion purposes, I'd like to move alternative 2, that the town engage the community as to satisfactory amenities to allow the development to proceed. Staff would host a guided community consultation to identify satisfactory amenities in accordance with the official community plan, which would offset the potential land use impacts in the proposed development.
Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it.
Great, we have a seconder on that motion. If you want to speak to it,
Yeah.
Councillor Kerr, and then we'll go into discussion.
Well, I think it's clear that many residents have, questions and concerns about the proposed height specifically, and the loss of the town circle, in addition to other things. So let's, and in this room, we're kind of stuck, right? We have a really excellent presentation that we just heard from our planning department, and I actually want to thank them for the strategic plan link, which is the first time I've had a chance to see that on page 61. And we've also heard from the developer that the recommendation from staff isn't possible or doable. So let's, and in this room, we're not sure what it is. Would it be this or that? We really can't come up with an idea. So let's put it to Comox residents. Let's put the proposal in front of them and say, this is the opportunity for you to have a say. And specifically because a lot of the letters starting from December 13th to March 16th and the comments at the open house so far haven't been reflected in the proposal, this would be the opportunity for the community to have that input and give us their ideas.
Comments from around the table on the motion, which has been seconded for the second alternative there to go out to community consultation on an amenities package. Councillor Hazlitt and then Councillor Blackwell, please.
I think that we should leave this in the hands of our capable staff to determine what the best amenities would be for the community. They have experience doing this. They know intimately what the town needs. And I think that they're the ones best suited to speak with the developer as to what town could use. I would vote against that alternative. And that's why.
Councillor Blackwell.
I think we have a responsibility here as a council to make a decision tonight on to whether this amenity package is appropriate. I don't think adding a community consultation process is going to do anything other than add a whole bunch of time and expense to a process that, to be quite frank, has already taken too long. We are in the middle of a housing crisis. We have been told by multiple levels of government above us that we need to approve new units of housing as soon as possible to get more housing on the market for people. And I really don't see how adding further public consultation, we already have a public consultation built into the rezoning process. There will be a public hearing on this. So I would invite, all residents with concerns about the project to come out to the open house when that day comes and let us know then. We think about public amenities. I think of downtown Comox, and if this site, it truly is a no-go, and we've been told it's a deal breaker. So if we want this building to approve, if we want this building to go forward and be constructed and add 52 new homes to Comox, what do we need to do? We need to identify an alternate spot for a public plaza. And I think of our downtown, and I think, what are the two main corners? There's Church Street, and there's Norden Street, and there's Fort Augusta Street. Think of the northeast corner of Church Street and Comox Avenue. That is a property that is a square property. It is owned by the people of Canada through the Public Postal Corporation. There is a beautiful site for a potential town plaza. Now, a lot of work to be done, but if this amenity package as presented is not sufficient, I would ask for a cash contribution to consider acquiring that site at the northeast corner of Comox Avenue and Church Street. It is not large enough to facilitate any sort of large development. It is blocked to the east by the large Queenish apartment building. And that to me would be a more suitable site than the small site for a public square. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blacklock. And just to clarify, that's not a motion, as we have a motion on the table, but a suggestion or alternative. But to clarify that, that's not a motion on the table. Other comments or feedback, Councillor Swift?
I would like to leave this in the hands of between the staff and the developer, simply because when we have a community consultation, they don't always have all the information, and it takes up a lot of time, and it's sometimes frustrating for everybody because they don't have as much information as they need, and they suggest all kinds of interesting things that just aren't practical. So I think the developer and the staff are the ones that are best positioned to come forward with something that is suitable for us.
Thank you. And myself, I'm a big proponent of community consultation, but I do appreciate that it went out twice to the community and we have some of that feedback, and there still would be a public hearing coming. So I think time is of the essence, and there really hasn't been these buildings built and there's a need for it, I would say that would outweigh kind of the opinion that the issue here is marrying what the community has told us they would like to see and the proposal before us, but not necessarily that we don't have a grasp of the decision of what's missing. So I would vote against that. And Councillor Carr. And then Councillor Mayor online.
Sure. So I can kind of see where this vote's headed. Just maybe a question for staff. So, we often hear from developers, don't change the goalposts at the last minute. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the guidelines and criteria are pretty clear. But again, if these letters starting 10 months ago haven't been addressed, at what point in the planning process and the conversation between the planning department and the developer do they get addressed? Yes, people came out to the open house. Their feedback has not been included. Yes, people wrote letters. Their feedback has not been included. So if we don't have another consultation process, which I see that's the way this vote is headed, then When do planning and the developer have that conversation about feedback that has been provided? Thank you.
And that's somewhat what we're discussing tonight, is if we say the package needs to be relooked at or not until public hearing. So, Councillor May, you're online.
Question for staff.
Sorry, over to CAO Wall.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Kerr. So that process for community consultation took place, and we got the feedback, and staff has read and considered the feedback that has come in from the community. And I think the incorporation of some of those community concerns is why council's faced with a difference in submissions between the developer and staff right now. So staff won't address or require a developer to address every resident concern that comes in, but we try and take a look at what has come in, consider it against what's reasonable, the community needs that we see at a staff level, and put forward a recommendation that tries to balance everything. And that's what you have here. Now, moving forward, council still has a number of opportunities to make those changes, considering what you see is in the best community interest. That could be tonight. That could be when you're examining the readings of the bylaws, and you're going to hear from the community one more time. It's important to remember that in a number of communities, this would really be the start of the process, and you wouldn't have had the opportunity for that community feedback yet, and you wouldn't get it until you get into the public hearing later on. And so there is that opportunity for council as well to hear the community through the public hearing, and then make changes at that point too.
Councillor Mayor online, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I just feel similarly to how many of the other councillors feel, that I really value the opportunity to hear from the public and to do that engagement piece. But I'm not sure that doing it on the community amenity contribution is the right place. So I do think we'll have to vote down this motion and propose a new one is I think maybe where it's headed.
Thank you for those comments.
Just to confirm, process-wise, we do have to vote this one down before we propose another one, right?
We have to vote on the motion before we look at any other motions, correct?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just to reiterate, we're voting that staff post on the motion that staff host a guided community consultation, a secondary version to identify satisfactory amenities in accordance with our official community plan policy. So all those in favor? And opposed? And that motion is defeated. Is there any other motions that would like to be made, or any clarification needed from council on what we're looking for here? Councillor Grant, and then Councillor Hazlitt.
Thanks, sir. So just to confirm, if we were to go with alternative one, and just before the developer stepped down after their delegation, I had mentioned about moving the current square east. He had said they would have a look at that and bring that back. If we were to go with alternative one, would that still leave room for negotiation on amenities with the developer, and we could start some path?
I believe yes, but CAO Wall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Hazlitt. If you were to pass alternative one, there would be no further negotiation between staff and the developer. We would move forward with the readings as proposed by the developer. So if council wishes to provide direction to seek further negotiation with the developer for additional amenities, that recommendation and alternative is not on the agenda. I can provide you with that alternative for council to put on the table for debate. And I'll look over to Director Commends to maybe start preparing that motion so that we have it ready if needed.
And the recommendation is that for an amenity of a proposed 6-story building, the applicant be advised that a more appropriate amenity offset, be provided, which for that, that doesn't sound like what was. Sorry. The recommendation on there is that the applicant would be advised that a more appropriate amenity be needed to offset. So that is what Councillor Haslett is saying. I'm reading.
If I understood the question correctly, alternative recommendation number 1, that the application proceed as proposed, that would be that we prepare the first and second reading as has been proposed by the developer. What we have as the recommendation is that the amenity package as submitted by the developer is insufficient, but it also includes a specific recommendation to move forward with the public plaza. So I believe, and it can be corrected if I'm wrong, that Councillor Haslett is asking for a motion that would direct staff to continue negotiations with the developer to bring back a more suitable amenity package for council.
That's correct. I was asking the question if we pass, or if we voted on and passed alternative 1, that we were still open to discuss with the developer on a suitable amenity.
Yes, and that the alternative 1 is that the amenity package as submitted by the developer is acceptable. So alternative 1 is not the alternative you're looking for. Sorry, Director Cummins is working on what that alternative motion will be should council want to move it forward.
Thank you for clarifying. I thought it was if we pass the recommendation. I missed that it was the alternative recommendation. We have no recommendations on the floor at the moment. There may be one being drafted, but Councillor Grant, or you?
Well, I think that we seem to have a bit of a standstill here, and I think it would be a real shame to have this fall apart. And I think that it's important that we leave all options open. You know, we heard talk about cash contribution. Steve just brought up a possibility, although I don't know how realistic that would be. It would be a great spot for it. But I think that we need to sit down and go through this and come up with something that will work. And I think it has to be in a timely manner as well. I don't think we can sit here and mess around with this for months and months and months. So I'd like to put some sort of a timeline on it so that we can get back and get on with this.
And just to follow up, Councillor Grant, I would agree with what you've said there. We can wait a moment for planning to come up with the recommendation if what Councillor Haslett is saying was closer to what you would be possibly seconding, and with the addition that a timeline would be being sought.
I was going to make that motion just off the top of my head, but I'll wait for Martin's.
Everyone's comfortable with that. If there's no other motions at this time, we'll just wait a moment and get that. No pressure. Over to CAO Wall.
That, considering official community plan section 2.1.3.3H, the form of development should be a maximum of 4 stories in height. A higher height may be considered if satisfactory amenities are provided. That administration be directed to consult with the applicant to develop a more appropriate amenity offset to the potential land use impacts of the proposed development on RZ 23-3 and DP 23-6215 Port Augusta Street.
Can you comment? Thank you for putting that together. Can you comment on whether a date can be added? And the secondary is how transit is implicated in the motion that you just read as a secondary item to the plaza.
Transit is in the second motion. I would suggest that council should deal with that secondarily. I understand the need to move this through quickly. What we're looking at in negotiating something to bring back to council is something I believe can be done relatively quickly. I would imagine the developer is just as motivated to move this through as quickly as council is. So this isn't something that I think council needs to provide that additional direction on. I hear loud and clearly, and I want to see this moving forward quickly as well. So we will have that meeting in the very near future and can bring it back. What I see taking a little bit more time is going to be item 2 as we work with BC Transit to try and manage their concerns on this. I think the amenity package will be can be brought back to council probably quicker than item 2.
So the follow-up to that, and I know we haven't had the motion on the floor yet, is that like the idea of a traffic study wouldn't necessarily get tied in with an amenity package and slow things down. We haven't had that discussion, or we'll have that discussion back.
Yes, I'd suggest that council treat these 2 motions, the one that I just suggested and item 2 separately.
Okay,
So
we'll go
deal
back
with
to
them one at a time. We likely can't bring the package back for bylaw readings until we deal with the transit, because it's going to deter, like, part of what needs to be in this package is statutory right of ways, who has right to what areas. So I don't see the major holdup on this being a negotiation of amenities. It's probably going to take a little bit longer just to deal with the traffic, but I'm hearing council loud and clear. We want to sit down with the developer and BC Transit, sort all of these things out and bring in a package that's agreeable to everybody back to council as soon as possible.
Yeah, in a time fashion. Okay, so we'll get to transit on a second motion. Does anyone need that motion reread back out about discussions happening in the immediate future about what's been discussed tonight, mostly amenities package, including plaza or other? Councillor Grant?
Yeah, so this not being my first rodeo, I know that when you say it will be quick, staff's impression of quick and some other people's can be 2 different things. And so I would still like to have some sort of a end date for this so that we know where we're headed. This could be quite simple. It might be a quick afternoon meeting where you come up with something, or it could take quite some time, or maybe we can't come up with anything at all. But I think that without having a date on here, this can just run forever. So I would suggest that we put a date in of where are we on October? What if we said by middle December?
I think the only challenge would be maybe staff, they will well can answer it, is what happens when that date, a conversation can happen by a certain date, but you'd have to have what happens if there's no decision after that, and that's probably the challenge with putting a date on it.
Well, they can always come back and say we need more time.
Correct. CAO Wall.
Thank you. I'm not opposed with council putting a date to conclude negotiations by. I'll say I don't believe it's going to incentivize staff to deal with this any faster. But if council wants to have that comfort of a date, you're totally able to do so. Maybe what I'll recommend, because it sounds like council headed in this direction, is to put the motion on the floor, as I said, and then introduce an amending motion to have a date on it, and then we can start to discuss the motion specifically.
Okay, Councillor Grant, did you make the motion that was put out, or Councillor Haslett? Perfect. So the motion is on the floor. Any further discussion on that motion? There might be an amendment to that motion. If you could use your mic, please, for those online. Thank you.
Just wondering, can I make an amendment to my own motion?
I think you can.
So I would like to amend that motion to be added date of December the 12th, 2023. Have that amendments package straightened out by.
For our December 13th council meeting.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm thinking part. Sorry, I got mixed up. Call it the 13th. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, maybe it hasn't been seconded yet, so I'd suggest that the amending motion be that a staff report on an updated amending package be submitted to council no later than December 13th regular council meeting.
Done it.
I'm wondering if we could possibly make it 2 weeks earlier, just because I don't want this left hanging over Christmas. And if there was some hang up at that point, we would have at least one more meeting before we adjourn for Christmas. So I'm thinking.
You're thinking the 29th of November.
Yeah. Is that too soon?
Sorry, online it's November 15th, 2023 is our last meeting in November. At this time, we can have a special meeting call.
So do we have a meeting on the 13th? Is that a scheduled meeting? I don't know.
December 13th, 2023. Yes, we have a meeting, strat meeting.
Okay, and if we want to make a decision, so would that be the 6th then?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll move to the 6th. Does that work for everybody?
Over to staff.
Yes. Yeah, that's fine. You just need a seconder.
Okay, so the amendment to move that we get a staff report on an updated amenities package by December 6th, 2023. If we can get, I'm gonna call the vote on that vote, the amending motion, not the motion itself, but adding the date. Councillor Kerr.
Where we have 3 votes to go. We have to amend the amendment, vote on the amendment, and then vote on the motion.
So council, what's on the table right now is only changing the date from the 13th to the 6th.
Oh, that's why we have 2 amending. I thought we were still within when it was made at the same time. Okay, so if we can get a vote on moving the date from December 13th to December 6th, 2023, all those in favor? We're now talking about the amended motion as read by CEO Wall, which would have a staff report come to December. Yes, CEO
So-
Wall.
Yeah, sorry, the motion that's now on the floor is the amending motion.
Voting on the amending motion.
Yeah.
Correct. I misworded it. We're voting on the amended motion for December 6th, 2023 being amended, not the actual motion itself. All those in favor of adding the amended motion, which added the date of December 6th, 2023 for the staff report. All those in favor? Opposed? So that passes. Now we're on the motion itself as amended with the December 6th date. Any further discussion? All those in favor of having the staff report with amenities discussed by December 6th, 2023.
Thank you. And I just want to add, this motion is going beyond asking for a report. This motion is directing staff to enter into negotiations and discussions with the developer to bring back a different amenity package than what's been submitted to you to date.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Kerr and then Councillor Swift, please.
Just a question either for CEO or Director of Planning. Would you see this as like one definitive option coming to us, or like some different options for us to consider?
CEO Wall.
I suspect it would be one option. If through discussions with the developer, we come up with more than one, we'd be happy to submit it. But I would suspect it would be one item coming back. It's I'll just leave it there. I suspect it will be one. There may be more, but I suspect it will be one.
Councillor Swift.
Thank you. If the staff and developer meet and are satisfied, they've got a package before them, and we have it prior to that end date.
Yes, that won't be a problem. Again, I think, and we can just deal with that amenity package specifically. I think what's going to take longer to get the bylaws right is just the transit, but maybe that can be resolved fairly quickly as well. So we'll see.
Any further questions on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Just to confirm, Councillor Mayor, you are in favor? Thank you for confirmation. Opposed? One opposed, that passes. Thank you for the discussion there. We'll just take a quick 1 or 2 minute break in case anyone wanted to depart. There's no pressure on that. We'll continue in about 1 moment. Okay, we're gonna continue the meeting on. So the part that we didn't get to on that, but that's okay. The transit implications with accordance to the staff report provided by staff on October 18th, 2023 for RZ 23-3 and DP 23-215 Port Augusta Street. As stated, and any seconder on that? So questions or comments, just over to staff to confirm, does that mean we would be asking for a full traffic study, or does it mean that we would go back and just be negotiating with both the developer and BC or facilitating would be the right word?
It's just asking for additional information, whether a full traffic study is required by staff and BC Transit depends on where the discussion leads. So it's possible that's required, it's possible that it gets resolved quickly.
Okay, sounds good. Seems like the tone of figuring out things quickly has been heard. So that's great. Questions or comments, Councillor Blacklock?
We heard earlier from the developer this evening that part of addressing the transit concerns would be relocating an entrance to the east side of the building from the west side of the Port Augusta frontage. I just remind staff that that was at least expressed as thing that could be explored as a way to mitigate the sort of transit extensions. I also read in here a lot of concerns about moving it further north up Port Augusta, but I would argue that those concerns are probably secondary to the concerns of if the building is relocated and the plaza is not required, then I think it should be mitigated through that.
Yeah, I echo that's kind of the minor issue of the couple that we've highlighted. Other questions or comments, CAO Wall?
Yeah, I was just going to mention to Council's point, these are simply BC Transit's concerns. Council does not have to sort of listen or follow BC Transit's concerns to Council.
Thank you. Okay, with no further comments, all those in favor of the current motion number 2 of that for staff report on transit? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we're moving on to page 436. That just shows how much information there was on 215 Port Augusta, a couple hundred pages. We have the adoption of the 2022, now 2023 to 2026 strategic plan that we approve. The 2022 to 2026 strategic plan as included in the October 18th, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted. Seconder. Perfect. Questions, comments? I know we spent a good couple hours at a couple meetings getting that completed. So thank you so much for every single one of you that did participate, including staff. So all those in favor of passing the plan as it is, yeah, we did comment at our last meeting, which was a strat meeting, that we would be discussing advocacy as a portion of our strategic planning meeting once a month, and we would find a way in future of how to work that or kind of marry it with our strategic plan, so that won't be left behind. But this is our strategic plan complete now. And if approved, this will be going out to the public in different communication formats. Thank you for that. All those in favor? Opposed? Perfect. Thank you very much. That passes and it is now final. So we have no notices of motion, no correspondence, no late items. We'll just go quickly around the room for reports from members of council, which we have updated to be anything that you think is important and new knowledge for council to share, but not necessarily the different events you attended at. So anything you think is important for the group, council or staff to be aware of. So I'll start with Councillor Blacklock, and totally understandable on your list.
Well,
And we'll go
I just take this opportunity to thank you all. For those of you who don't know, I did have a personal medical cardiac event about 10 days ago. And I appreciate everyone who reached out to me and and provided me with advice and guidance and support. It's great to be back, and I'm glad it wasn't a more serious thing. So thank you very much to the town. And thank you, Mayor Nicole, for the gift basket. I appreciate it very much.
We're happy to have you back. And I started with you and then I thought, oh, that's kind of ironic. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for starting us off. And we are happy to have you here tonight. Councillor Swift.
Yes, we're very pleased to have you back. I just had an interesting meeting this afternoon with the early childhood collaboration group. And there was a presentation from a group it's called NICU, but it's a female, it's Indigenous, let me see, how is it? Indigenous owned and female led business. And they're in the business of providing modular units. And their focus has been, well, housing, but also child care spaces. And their units are beautiful. And they're about to embark on a big project in Fernie that has childcare on the bottom and then affordable housing on the top with all these modular units. And they're marketing for the childcare workers and paramedics and those kinds of people that are needing housing. So it was worth a good look. And they will work with the municipality and do all the help with applications and so on. So they are looking for spaces in parks, school district property. And so if we just keep it at the back of our minds, we might come up with something. And that's my report.
Thank you for sharing, Councillor Hazlitt.
Nothing noticed.
Thanks. I'm going to go online to Councillor Mayer.
Thank you. Just that I attended a museum board meeting, and AGM is coming up in November, and we are looking for new board members. So if any of you have in your circles people who are passionate about history and heritage and what that looks like in the day of UNDRIP and DRIPA, please get them in touch with me, and we can talk about joining the board. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Kerr and then Councillor Grant, please.
Great, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the Downtown BIA for hosting the Get to Know Your BIA mixer last week, and thank you to the Legion for hosting. President Pete Chambers sung Councillor Blacklock's praises as our excellent rep and council on the BIA. So, and Steve, it's great to have you back at the table. At the CBRD, a couple of updates. First, on the homelessness front, and realizing that winter is coming. We approved $91,000 last night at the CBRD meeting towards the 2023 homelessness and support services to establish an extreme weather response shelter, and the location is still being looked at, but stay tuned for more information on that. And then also we discussed last night the residential emissions reduction action plan, and we approved 4 recommendations, including looking at how we as communities can get towards the zero carbon step code to meet our 2030 GHG targets. Thanks.
Karen? Okay. Yeah, I was at the same meeting. The other thing is we had the Growing Communities Fund was on there. So it was decided to put $300,000 towards a Cumberland Courtney connector for biking, walking between the two communities, and $317,000 to the new artificial turf. There was $1 million on there to go towards the sewer extension, the South Sewer Extension Fund, which not very many people thought was a very good idea. It seemed to be very targeted at one area, and because it's a growing communities fund and it has to be owned by the regional district, it came out to what do you want to do with that money? It's gone back. If you can think of a project that we could maybe submit and say, hey, we could be part of that, as long as it's owned by the RD. If there's something out there that would benefit us, we may be able to get our hands on some or all of that money. So That's my report.
Thank you very much. Just a quick follow-up to Councillor Kerr and Councillor Grant, who were at the RD last night. There was a task force put together about a week ago of the mayor's, Chief Price from Comox First Nation and the regional district to basically put our heads together and make phone calls all around the valley, which are still happening. We're kind of making calls every day and checking in either in person or in by phone call. But basically, there's a dire for space for a winter shelter, which they would open as early as November 1st. So there will be a press release coming out from the regional district tomorrow, but you'll likely see each of the municipalities as well as the Comox First Nation asking everyone to kind of think of different spaces, taking lots of different things into consideration, but they're looking for somewhere between about 1,500 and 3,000 square feet. It will probably be 2 locations to house approximately 30 to 40 people at each location. And it would be from November 1st until March 31st. So basically about a 5-month shelter space in 2 spaces. One for kind of, I'll say, low barrier access, and the other for those who have been living in vehicles, may have families with them. There's different unhoused populations that they're looking to serve. But in past years, kind of a location has come up and been used, and it's to be every year the same challenge comes up. So there's definitely the possibility of a permanent shelter coming in a year to 2, or talks a bit from the province where this normally kind of lives. But there's a community call to action going out tomorrow to say we really have I don't want to call it a gap year or 2, but there's this immediate need in the next week or 2 to find this space. And in an optimal world, the space would have a small kitchen. It would have 2 bathrooms, but we're also looking at all things from float camp to ATCO trailers that can have bathrooms and showers nearby to, every alternative has been discussed at these meetings. But the thought is if we go into the really cold winter months, which could hit in November, December, and there's, 100 people that don't have a place to lie at night, that's going to be very challenging for them. And so that's the big community call to action at our political level. And if you know anyone, or if you see the press release, or we'll all do some kind of a video or an ask, to please consider who your connections are. You may find they've already got a call, because we've been making phone calls since last Friday, approximately. So that's the community call to action from the whole regional district. And again, 2 spaces for potentially 80 to 100 people that are going to be unhoused this winter. And our preference is not to just have it when it goes into blizzard conditions, but be able to provide a safe space at night from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. for those in need all winter long. So please consider who you might know in that area. And the press release will have Jesse Kettler's contact information, but you can speak to any of the mayors, myself, staff, etc. And on that note, there's no questions from the media. Is there any public questions this evening? Do you mind using the mic at all? Is it Bob?
I'm not sure if this is the time or place, but I'm excited about the development on the mall. I like that thing. And the discussion tonight around the amenity, and if I understand it correctly, it's the circle that is owned by the town. And it's going to be occupied by the new development. And we're not wanting to give up that piece of property. Is that how?
I'll speak, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong. We don't own that right now. The mall development owns it, but we have a statutory right of way. So the perception is that we own that as our town circle. We've used that space like our own property. It is not our property, but we're concerned about the traditional and cultural aspect of it, but we don't own.
That's what the dance is about now. And the fellow doesn't want to give up any more space because he's going to pick up that. So with all due respect to Dr. Kerr, I don't see that space as being vital to town. And the upsides to what I was wondering about is the price, the section that was in red there, is that still in play? Is that still?
That's kind of what the developer has proposed as like a flex event space. So it is a parking lot. It would stay as a parking lot with some pavers and benches and additions, but it's the challenge. And I can't speak for everybody, but it's a kind of it is still a parking lot, so it doesn't have that same community gathering ability that the other one has. So we were, I think, in a perfect world, we'd be able to enhance the community plaza because of this development. But at this moment, we don't have that solution. It seems to be the biggest gap. But we don't own Town Square now, although I think the perception might be that we do.
But that's what the pushing and shoving is about, is that
Exactly.
sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
the
think we built
conversation.
that red section when we needed it, and there will be benches or something people could sit around and gather that probably more than in the circle.
Well, I appreciate you being here to watch a whole meeting and give that perception as a community member. So, yeah, that's our community. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Probably shouldn't joke about these things. Thank you for those comments. Those are very helpful. Other questions at all? Okay, with that, I do have a resolution that we go in camera following the subsection of section 90 of the community charter, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. If I can get a motion to go in camera. All those in favor? So we'll be going in camera shortly.